Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wellness Wizards. Today we will be discussing. What are we discussing?
Holiday food.
Okay. What are we discussing again?
Okay, so we're discussing holidays and our eating habits
During the holidays. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wellness Wizards. Today we will be discussing holidays and our eating habits during the holidays.
All right, so this is a really fun topic because when are the holidays? When did the holidays start?
Rajma. For holiday food is rajma.
No, but when do the holidays start?
I think
Today.
They mainly start like the week of Thanksgiving or Halloween.
Yeah, I think that the holidays really start in October. So I think that like we start preparing for Halloween in the beginning of October, and then we just keep going for Thanksgiving and Diwali and Christmas and Hanukkah
and then New Year
and Kwanzaa.
Yeah. And then it goes New Year.
And then New Year. So it's kind of like 3 months, or like 25% of the year goes into holidays, right? Yeah. And holiday feasting. So
but 3 months is 25% of the year.
That's
right.
Exactly what you said.
Yes, and then the next 3 months, it's more holidays. Like Valentine's Days, April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
but there's not like really
Mother's Day, then there's St. Patrick's Day, then there's Father's Day.
That's true. But you know what? When we're thinking about our eating habits, like this is like these 3 months is really when we kind of tend to get together more with other people, right? Valentine's Day is okay, but you know, St. Patrick's Day, not really. It's like, okay, fine, you wear green, but like these holidays are focused around gathering together with friends and family
and
eating and drinking, right? And what kind of things do we normally eat at this time of year?
Like mashed potatoes, turkey stuffing, gravy. Yeah.
There's the whole song.
What?
Turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, stuffing, butter, pumpkin pie, green beans, candied yams, cranberry relish, cornbread, apple pie. We can just stop there for now.
All right. So yes, there's a lot of foods.
It's more pie and turkey and mashed potatoes.
Yeah. So foods that are heavy, foods that are creamy, foods that are sugary and salty.
But then there's also this healthy
food.
Halloween,
it's candy.
And Halloween, there's a lot of
candy. But then there's also
the
healthy food for turkey.
What?
A green bean casserole.
Okay. So there are some green beans put in there. They can be prepared different ways. But yeah, so, so basically the point is there's a lot of eating, right? And like for our holidays in Diwali, we end up having a lot of fried stuff. There's a lot of chaat and like really, and sugary sweets.
Diwali, I had rajma and chola and dal and saag.
Okay, well, yes, but I'm just talking about traditionally, like when we get together with the family, the whole family, then we tend to eat those, khatta meetha and like aloo bhujia and aloo tikkis, all those yummy foods. So, all right, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And let me just ask you, like, what do you think about, why do you think we eat so much? And why do you think we eat the foods that we eat?
Because we're hungry all the time.
Because we're tempted because they're in front of us. Maybe we can also talk about like how to control that temptation.
Yeah, good idea. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the temptation or why we eat the foods we eat.
Rajma is a holiday food. We always have it for Diwali.
Well, we have rajma for different occasions. We eat a lot of different foods for the holidays, and part of it is a reward system, right? Because it makes us feel what?
Happy.
Yeah, it makes us feel happy. We associate food with happiness and joy and love.
Makes me feel happy.
It does. Well, so you know what? This is a good point because you associate foods with love, right? Mm-hmm. So like you think, oh, mom made my favorite food. She made rajma for me, and that's my favorite. She must really love me.
Right, but then there's also the times where like
if you get it from a restaurant, does that mean they really love you?
but there's also the times where somebody makes something and you know they make it for you, but then you don't like what they make and then you just say you like it and you end up eating it. So if you don't like something, you don't have to say I don't like it. You can still be like I like it. Or you don't even have to say that, but just try not to stuff yourself up on it because then you're going to get a stomach ache.
Well, so you know what? You make some really good points. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this what we call a dopamine response. So dopamine is a chemical that's in our brains, and we have a whole bunch of chemicals. We talked about that, right? Like those are hormones that we have in our brain that get released in response to different
cow
things.
Hormones. If you drink milk, that you turn into a cow.
That's not what happens.
No.
But
what was that one about the dog?
okay, so that I was telling you about Pavlov's dog, but this is a different experiment. Okay, I'm going to tell you about something else. So this is about dopamine. So there's something in our brain called dopamine, and dopamine is basically it's a reward hormone. It's a feel-good hormone. So when you have dopamine released in your brain, that makes you feel really, really good. Mm-hmm. So when we do certain things, when we eat certain things, this releases dopamine. And we feel good when we eat these things. Like, so example is chocolate, right? Chocolate or chips. When you eat it, you're like, well, that really feels good. I'm going to eat some more so I can feel even more good.
It's addictive.
You're right. Yes. So these foods are addictive. And there was an experiment that was done with rats like a long time ago, right? So they had these rats and the rats would see a light go on. And then when they would see the light go on, they would push a button. And then after that, it would give them a drug. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you too much about the drug, but it would give them a drug, and their dopamine would go up. And so then they were like, "Oh, I really like it." So what ended up happening is these rats would go back and they would keep pushing the button because they kept wanting to get more and more of this drug. And every time they would get the drug, their dopamine levels would go up, and then they would fall. And the longer they were in that space of like the more dopamine they were getting, the dopamine levels would actually go up really high, but then they would fall below that, what we call a threshold level. So let me give you another example, because I know the rat thing might not be something you can relate to. But
also like last night, like we had a thing of Toblerone. Mm-hmm. My dad like put the pieces in, and he just ate one. Then he couldn't stop, and in the end he ended up having like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
No, you had 3.
Yeah. And I had to stop you guys, right? I had to stop.
I had 1.
Okay. So I had to stop you guys. So what ended up happening was that, so let's just give an example. Okay, let's give an example of jelly beans. So I know, Neal, that you don't love jelly beans, but we're going to use this example right now, okay?
They make me throw up.
Well, that's okay. All right. Yeah. So let's just say that I go to your school, right? And one day I'm like, well, I'm going to just bring these red jelly beans to Maya's class. And I give everybody in the class red jelly beans. And they eat it and they're like, oh, I really like these jelly beans. These are really great. And the next day I come back again. And again, I bring these red jelly beans and everyone's like, yay, red jelly beans. So I'm doing this like every day, 3, 4, 5 days. Okay. Every day I come in and I give the jelly beans and everyone's really happy. And then, let's just say now other kids are telling, hey, guess what? Maya's mom brings jelly beans. So now I'm associated with the jelly beans. And I come into the classroom and not only is your class there waiting for the jelly beans, now you have the other class too, right? The other 5th grade class. And so now your class wants jelly beans too. And I was like, oh, shoot. So now I have to have more jelly beans. So I have to give you more jelly beans to make everybody happy, right? And then after time, this starts spreading. So your entire school is like, hey, Maya's mom has jelly beans. As soon as Maya's mom walks into the door, we're going to be waiting for her for the jelly beans. So now I have to bring even more jelly beans. And then one day I'm like, man, this is really not good. I'm just going to stop bringing jelly beans. Or I'm not going to bring enough jelly beans. And then what happens?
Nobody gets jelly beans.
Right.
And everybody gets mad.
Then you don't... Wait, so do you not bring enough jelly beans for everybody, or you just don't bring any?
Yeah, I don't bring enough or I don't bring any. What happens?
People get mad and because not everybody will get jelly beans.
That's right. They get mad. They get... What else? What else do they feel?
Furious.
Yeah, they feel pretty sad, right, Neil?
Yeah, but why would you feel sad about candy? You should feel sad that you didn't get Rajma instead.
All right, but let's just say that it's jelly beans. This is the thing, okay? Because most people are going to be excited about jelly beans and not about Rajma. So I am just equating the jelly beans to the dopamine, okay? And that feeling that you get. You're happy. You get the jelly beans, you feel happy. You don't get the jelly beans when you're expecting the jelly beans, and now you're feeling really upset. And in order to fill that void, you just have to have more and more and more jelly beans. That's how addiction works, right? And that's the other thing is that, even with food, like you said, Maya, you can get addicted to different foods as well, right? Maybe not to the same degree as some other things, but yes, in some of the foods like ultra processed foods, sugary foods, foods that have a lot of fat in them, these are foods that you can get addicted to very easily. Have you noticed that before?
Yeah, so why don't we now talk
Maya's
about how we
addicted
can...
to aloo bhujia.
That is not true. Now, how about we figure out how we can help so we don't have this same temptation every single time?
Yeah.
Because then if we keep having this temptation every single time we see that food, and if that food is unhealthy, then you'll keep eating more of it.
And then you get diabetes.
That's not true, not
There's
all the
this
time.
equation.
So-
Bob has 35 candy bars. He eats 27 candy bars. What does Bob have now?
Diabetes.
Bob had diabetes.
Yeah, that's a thing that's going around. So basically, if you keep having the same food and that food is not good for you, you'll keep having more of it because you're like, well, it tastes good, but I don't know how to stop because it's in front of me. So what we have to learn to do is we have to learn to cure that temptation. And I am not that good at that. I sometimes see a food that I like a lot and I eat it, and sometimes I eat too much of something. But I'm now trying to focus on having less of that temptation, and then I won't end up eating those foods. And finding instead, like, since we don't eat eggs, we find a substitute. We now use like avocados as a substitute for eggs because they're really nice.
Like you're talking about it as a breakfast food.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. So there are some foods that that have been identified as possibly being more addictive for some people, right? You're absolutely right. So there are some foods that it's called the Yale food addiction scale. Okay. So it's actually it's a questionnaire, and it looks at different foods that people might seem to feel more addicted to. So like I said, pizza is one of those. Rajma is not one of those. So Rajma is kidney beans for people who don't really speak Hindi. But chips and French fries and donuts and milkshakes.
And chola.
Yeah. So now...
Wait, is chola an addiction?
It can be, because you could put a lot of grease and fat in it. Actually, it can be a junk food depending on how it's prepared. So the way that foods are prepared makes a big difference. It can be, depending on how it's prepared. So you could have a food that's fried and deep fried, or you could have the same food that's steamed or baked. So how you prepare the food makes a really big difference in the taste of the food and the chemical structure of the food, right? And also that can affect your brain's response to it. Right, Maya, how you were talking about, like, there are foods, like if you eat aloo bhujia, which is a weakness, right? Yeah. That more you eat of that, because it's fried and you kind of want to have more of it. Whereas, like, if I were to give you a baked potato, still a potato,
but I wouldn't.
You wouldn't want to eat that much of it, right?
I like baked potatoes.
I know.
Potato.
So,
Baked potato.
okay, so one of the other things is, like, when we're lonely, we tend to eat, right? So, for example, like if you're feeling sad, some people, when they're feeling sad, they're like, oh man, I'm feeling really sad, or they're chronically stressed out. We'll use food, and especially around the holidays, because around the holidays, people can feel a lot more stress. It could be because, maybe they've lost somebody that they love and they're just feeling really, really sad about it. It could be because they are, maybe got divorced, or, something bad has happened, but it's causing chronic stress for them. And what ends up happening, and, we've talked about cortisol in the past, that hormone that goes up, like if you see a bear, right? And then
I like bears. I go huggy.
Well, you're not going to go hug a real bear. That would be a really scary situation.
Why didn't bear hug me back?
but like if you were to see something really scary, one of the hormones that would go up is cortisol. That's part of that fight or flight response.
What's scary?
If you saw a snake.
Neal, petty snake.
No, you would not.
And then he take tail and he uses lasso.
Okay. All right. Let's try not to talk like a baby. Let's talk like you normally talk.
Yeah, lasso.
Okay. When you're in a situation where you're feeling very stressed out, like if you were to see a bear, you were to see a snake, you're going to want to run away. And this causes stress, right? And stress is good in that moment because it's going to save your life.
Slow.
Sometimes it's good to have stress and be afraid because then you know what's wrong. Like if you're in front of a bear and you're not afraid of anything and you don't have any stress, then you're going to just walk up to the bear and you could get badly hurt.
Right. So that's protective. So this is exactly why, it's a good thing in that moment. But what happens is that people feel chronically stressed out. They're like constantly feeling stressed. And that chronic stress keeps those hormone levels high. And one of those hormones is cortisol. And that cortisol is what kind of causes, us to sort of be in that constant mode of making sure to preserve ourselves. So our blood sugar stays high in those situations, right? In that situation, when we have high cortisol, we also tend to crave foods that are high in energy. So lots of really fattening or sugary foods.
Chocolate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we're in that
rajma?
state, we actually really crave not rajma. We crave
Donuts?
those. Yeah. Yeah. So we crave things that are really quick sources of energy and lots of energies. So the other thing is that when we go in a social situation, right? What happens when you're at a party?
You eat a lot.
And I run around.
You run around. But what do most people do? Like, let's just say that we think about like a family. Well, it's been a while since we've done a big family Thanksgiving party. But what's normally on that people have like during Thanksgiving?
People eat a lot.
People eat a lot.
People run around a lot.
No, they don't run around a lot. People are usually sitting, right? They're sitting and talking. They have the TV on, right? So a lot of times families will sit together and watch TV together.
Or sometimes they just go to a family gathering and then they put, because the kids are probably going to get bored because they want to talk, they turn the TV on upstairs and give them the remote.
Right. So a lot of people just sit around, watch TV, are inactive. And then, I come in and I'm talking to you and I see that you have a plate of food, right? You have a plate of, I'm not going to say rajma. Then I'm looking at you. So I come up to you and here I'm like, oh, hi, auntie, how are you? And you have a plate full of, pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Pumpkin pie.
Last time you're the one who gave me the pumpkin pie.
Not you. I'm pretending like one of you is auntie. And I'm like, oh, hi. And whatever. You have a plate full of food. Okay. Plate full of cookies. Okay. Plate full of cookies. And you're eating those. And I'm looking at you and I'm like, okay. So if I'm not eating something, and she's like, oh, beta, have something to eat. Have some. And I'm going to be like, in my mind, I'm kind of like, I don't really eat that stuff because that's not good for me and I don't want to. But what am I going to do? Because I don't want to hurt her feelings.
You eat it.
Yes, I'm going to eat it because if I don't eat it, then I come off as being rude or I come off as looking judgmental, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially if somebody makes that food.
If they make it for you and then you're like, oh, I'm going to hurt their feelings if I don't eat it. So what's one way that maybe we could try to limit that from happening?
You could say, oh, I'm sorry. The kids were hungry, so I ate a little something.
No, just say, sorry, I'm lactose intolerant.
Or to say, I'm sorry, the kids were hungry. Just blame it on us. So we ate something before we left.
All right. So yeah, you could actually, one good thing, you make a good point. One thing is you can eat a little something before you go to the party, right? So you can eat something healthy that'll fill you up, that has lots of fiber.
Apple?
Yeah, you can have
Rajma.
apples. Okay. You can have apples or you can have rajma or you can have something that fills your tummy a little bit and drink some water. Okay. Whatever will fill me up just enough that I'm not like going to go there and see all this food and decide to eat a lot of everything in front. Yeah.
And be like Pavlov's dog and start salivating.
Right. And be like
What's salivating?
Salivating is like when you're getting ready to eat and then, your mouth is preparing for it too. Yeah.
I'm
So-
preparing to eat.
You're preparing to eat? Well, I know, but we're talking about going to the party. And so having a little something before you go. The other thing, is that take something healthy with you.
What's some examples of some healthy things we can take with us?
Neil, do you have any ideas of some healthy things you can take?
Rajma,
Okay, what else?
chola,
Okay.
dal chawal, apples, strawberries.
Okay, good. So lots of different types of things that you can take to, Another thing is that you come in and then somebody hands you a drink and you're like, okay, do you want some champagne? And you're like, no, I'm a kid, right? But what else could they try to give you? Juice.
Water.
Yeah.
Martinelli's,
that's right.
I said water.
Yeah, they could try to give you water, but when you go for these celebrations, people aren't normally handing you water, right? They're giving you like juices and things like that. So try to avoid those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one option. Or say, you know what, if you're going to have it, it's fine. Like if you're having these things once in a while isn't a problem. It's the only issue with these celebrations is that, especially at this time of year, is it's not just one celebration. It wouldn't be a big deal if it was just one celebration or two celebrations. But this is the celebration for like months, and people are getting together, every weekend or every couple weekends for several months.
Starting December 1st or maybe even to November 30th. I looked at the calendar. December 1st we're meeting somebody, December 2nd, all the way to December 5th we're meeting somebody every single day for like a dinner or a brunch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to kind of keep these things in mind. And that's normal, right? Most people are going and visiting other people.
And then December 6th, there's nobody coming. Then December 7th, there's somebody coming
all right.
again.
We don't need to advertise our entire social calendar here. Okay. So,
Yes, we do.
huh?
We do.
Okay. All right. Other things that you can do. So like if you see a buffet, right? What do you do when you see a buffet?
You try and only take one of everything because then you can always come back and get more. But once you have stuff on your plate, then you feel like you need to eat everything or else you get shamed. But if you take a little bit and then if you're still hungry, then you can go back, see the things you liked, and then eat those again.
Okay. That's one option. Another option is even considering like maybe say, I'm going to just do this one round through this buffet and then that's it. Like you kind of mentally set up a limit.
Okay.
Right?
I never take one round through a buffet.
You never take a round. How many times do you go through a buffet?
Maybe like 4.
You go through the buffet 4 times?
I do it like once or twice.
And my plate is full every time.
Your plate's full every single time. Well, so then here's a point. How about having a smaller plate? Like if you had a big plate.
I had a big plate.
You have a
We
big plate.
used to do, remember a happy plate? And sad plate? So you take a little bit, and then once you clear your plate is happy. But then if your stomach is not happy, then you take more and then try and make another happy plate. But if you don't finish everything, then you have a sad plate.
Well, so I think that that's a pressure that we put, right? That you have to finish everything on your plate. So I think that we need to, recognize when we're actually feeling full, and there's different kinds of fullness. There's like your stomach feeling full, and then there's that socially feeling full. And they don't necessarily match up all the time. Thinking about, like, are you actually full? Like feeling those cues. What do you feel when you're full?
I feel like my stomach is about to explode.
Yeah.
And I feel pain in my chest.
Okay. So you don't want to get to the point where you're feeling like your stomach is exploding and you have pain in the chest. That means you definitely had way too much, right? So we want to get to that point where we're like 80% there.
There's not something called way too much.
There is something called way too much.
With food, there isn't.
Well, this is why people get sick. And this is why people have diseases like diabetes. They don't get diabetes from eating sugar. The diabetes comes from other problems. And by the way, one of the things that I've noticed that isn't necessarily universal, but when I was in my training and I would be in the hospital, I kind of inevitably always worked the weekends of Thanksgiving and like on Thanksgiving and right after Thanksgiving. I feel like I did that for maybe something like 9 or 10 years. And I would see a lot of people who would come in with a new diagnosis, and children. I would see a lot of kids that would come in with a new diagnosis of diabetes.
Wait, a new one?
Like they were just being diagnosed because they would end up kind of over.
No, it's been discovered. They just got it.
They got so sick. Their symptoms became so bad that they ended up coming in right like 1 or 2 days after the holidays. And I would end up seeing kids with this problem called diabetic ketoacidosis. So really long words, because in medicine we love really long words. So diabetic, right? So diabetes means that you have a high blood sugar, okay? And there's reasons for that. And I think that we'll go through talking about why you get diabetes. But so your blood sugar is high, but that sugar, that glucose can't get into your cells. It can't get into your liver, can't get into your muscle. So your body effectively can't really use it. So what happens is then your body is then trying to break down the fat to use as energy. Since it can't use the sugar that's coming in, it uses the fat that's stored, okay? And then that builds up something called ketones, all right? And ketones you don't want to have a lot of ketones in your body because the ketones make your body become acidic, right? So then your acid goes up really high. And then if your blood is too acidic, then that's when you get really sick and you can die. So that's just one type of diabetes. We're not going to go into the whole diabetes discussion right now, but this is something that can happen, and it's something that I pick up. And part of the reason that happens, Neal, if you could wake up, part of the reason that happens is because we tend to have those habits where we start overeating, and that just sort of triggers our illness. I will give you something to eat after this, okay? I know you just had breakfast, but that's okay. So we talked about some things. So we're going to, have smaller plates. So then in our mind, we think that we're eating more than we are. Because if we have a big plate and we put the same amount of food, it's going to look very little. And that's going to trick our brain into thinking we're not eating enough, right? So we want to have smaller plates so then we don't want to eat.
Fill it up like 100 feet.
So it's going to fall off. So you're not going to be able to fill it up 100 feet. Okay. So, all right. So what else are we, some things that we could do? What are some other things that we could do?
If you take too much, then just throw. It's better if you take too much food. Here's what you should do. It's better to go to the waste than to your waste. So then you should just throw your food away if you take too much. Don't feel pressured to finish everything.
Or just give it to somebody else.
But then don't feel pressured to take everything either.
Yeah. So
give it to your little brother. Your little brother's always hungry.
So first, what you want to do is you want to try and eat less. And if you end up taking too much,
give it to your little brother,
which might happen, you can give it to somebody else in your family who might still feel hungry. Or you can throw it away because you should not eat too much.
Little brother and
or you could be mindful about it in the first place.
Or you should give it to me.
And part of being mindful about it means enjoying your food, right? So do you ever think of some time that you're kind of not mindful where you are eating, but you're not really thinking about the food and
when
you're just
I'm
kind
starving?
Okay, maybe when you're starving. How about when you're going to school? What happens if you're late for school?
I eat a bunch of food. I don't eat.
You don't eat?
Yeah.
Yeah, and during lunchtime, I just gobble up my food. Like gobble, gobble, gobble.
Yeah.
With your wobble, wobble, wobble.
So you eat
gobble,
food.
Gobble, gobble, wobble, wobble, wobble.
Okay, so you eat food fast, right? And you eat it without really thinking about it or enjoying it or chewing it. And when we do that, then we tend to just stuff our mouths.
Unless it's rajma.
Right. You tend to stuff your mouth. And when it's rajma, you eat even more of it without listening to your body's cues that it's probably time to slow down. Okay. How long does it take for the brain to get the signal that the food's in your
20
stomach?
minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. So you want to eat for at least. Well, then maybe we need to work on some of your habits. Maybe we can do some experimentation and see how we can get you to slow down. What do you think?
I never will slow down.
And you know what? Speaking of not slowing down, what about, you were talking about running around and being active. How about instead of when we go to these big parties, instead of sitting around a TV set or, just sitting around and talking,
Games with us.
You could do games.
We can bring some a little rummy cup.
Taggy.
Well, rummy cup, you're still sitting, right? I'm talking about doing something active.
Taggy.
Yeah. So you could do, okay.
Musical chairs.
You could play tag. You could do musical chairs. You could do something like relay races, where you have, I don't know, there used to be this thing that you put a spoon in your mouth with the boiled egg, and then you have to like run back and forth without dropping the egg.
Yeah, we can do different relay races. Like you have a marker, you have to run, then you pass it to the next person, run, like stuff like that.
Or a 3-legged race, right? You get everyone involved. Everyone in the household can get involved with doing this. So you can be active, maybe just even going for a walk with everybody beforehand or after dinner. Right? Instead of just sitting and
walking always helps you digest the food. And also if you're like at a pool party, you don't want to eat and then go in the pool, because if your body's too active right after, so walking is okay, but then if you're like running or going in the pool after, your food is going to take longer to digest, because when your body is trying to digest the food, that takes a lot of power, which is why sometimes you feel sleepy after eating if you eat too much. But then when you're swimming or running, a lot of the power is going into moving your legs or arms, and then it takes the power away from trying to digest your food, which is why you might vomit.
Yeah, so you don't want to do anything that's really active that diverts the blood away from your intestines, right? You want to finish, you want to digest your food, right? Okay, so one of the things that we can also do, by the way, when we're making some of these really delicious treats, is we can swap out some of the ingredients, right? So like, can you think of anything, like instead of using butter or eggs, what could you use? Instead of giving eggs or butter in something, what could you replace it with? That's a healthier option. All right. Maybe I'll ask Maya.
I actually don't know.
You don't know. Okay. So good. So you could put applesauce, or you could put
Rajma.
Or you could put bananas to thicken things up instead of putting some of those thickeners in it. Okay. Before we wrap up, because I know that Neal's really hungry. So one thing that we can do, is that when we're going out to these parties or whatever, you can have a buddy system, right? So kind of keep each other accountable for what you're having. So maybe, I don't know if I should pair Dad and Neal together, because they're both little chocolate monsters. Yeah.
Maybe you could pair me and Dad.
Yeah, maybe. Perfect. Yeah, I don't know about that either. Okay.
Hey, what do you mean?
Well, I'm gonna ask Neal. Maybe this holiday season, maybe you can keep me accountable to make sure that I'm making good food choices, and I can keep you accountable. So if you see, me eating something, just be like, "Hey, Mom, why don't you have this instead?" What do you think?
But not like in a mean way, like, "Oh, that's so horrible what you're eating."
Yeah, you don't want to be mean about it and be like, "Oh, Mom, would you like some apples or some pears?" So I think that those are some good alternatives. So we have a buddy system, and we're swapping out some ingredients to make sure that we have healthier stuff. Okay.
Neal?
All right. So anything else we want to say today? Nope. Okay. Neal, why don't you close us out?
Thank you for watching Wellness Wizard. Click the subscribe button below and click the like button.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.